Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the second episode of Student Life at Colgate. My name is Kristen Cochran, and I'm the Assistant Dean of First and Second Year Experience and Community Development. I will be your host for tonight's webinar. There are just a few housekeeping items before we get started. This session is being recorded and will be posted online for any student who may have missed it and would like to watch it later. At the bottom, you'll see a chat button at our screen there, and feel free to ask any questions. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. There are several topics that our students are going to be talking about this evening, so your question may get answered throughout the webinar itself. If we do not answer your question, you have two options. You can email one of our panelist members a specific question, or you can email new students at Colgate, and I will make sure you get an answer. Lastly, this webinar will last about 50 minutes to an hour. Last week, we organized our webinar in 3 categories: adjusting to college, academics, and life at Colgate. And this webinar, we decided to try something different. So this week, we're gonna be talking about your first month at Colgate, your journey to your academic major, research opportunities that are available to you, using your resources to help you succeed at Colgate, getting involved in campus life, giving back to the community of Hamilton and the surrounding areas, and lastly, living in Hamilton, New York. And we hope to close out our webinar tonight with our students sharing their favorite traditions and a piece of advice they would give all of you. We are excited for you to join us this evening. I have 6 amazing students who are excited to share their stories and experiences with you. So let's get started. I'm going to ask each person on the panel to introduce themselves and where they call home. Willa, do you want to get us started?
Yep. Hi, everybody. My name is Willa. I call home New York City, or pretty much anywhere my parents are. I'm a member of the class of 2022, and I'm a geography major and also intending to declare an economics major. Yeah.
Awesome. Paul?
Hi, so I'm Paul Nugent. I am a member of the class of 2021. I call home the town of Woodbury in Orange County, New York. And I'm a dual major in geology and music.
Awesome. Katie?
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I'm a member of the class of 2021 as well, and I'm also a transfer student. I call home Manchester, New Hampshire, and I'm a double major in English literature and French.
Okay, Bella?
Hi everyone, I'm Bella DeLeon, and I'm also class of 2021. I call home Solvang, California. It's a little bit outside of Santa Barbara in Southern California. And I'm a philosophy major, English minor.
Haley?
Hi all, my name is Haley Taylor. I am from the Bronx. That's where I call home. Let me know if you're also from the Bronx. I'm part of Colgate class of 2021, and I am an educational studies major and a psychology minor.
Awesome. And our last panelist is Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Drebin. I call home outside of Philadelphia, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, as well as Manhattan and kind of the Colgate community as well. I'm a chemistry major and I'm class of 2022.
Great. So you've had a chance to meet all of our panelists. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what we're hoping for you to learn this evening. So we'll get started with your first month at Colgate. So Willa, do you want to share a little bit about your experiences at Colgate in your first month?
Yeah. So I went to a boarding school in New Hampshire. It was pretty small, about 500 students, and I loved it there, but it was definitely a big transition to Colgate. I really wanted to join Link staff and kind of share my story about the first month because I didn't really experience any homesickness like I think a lot of people did. And all I kept kind of hearing from my links and from people around me was that it's okay to feel homesick. You know, everybody goes through that. And I didn't. And that was really hard for me. So one of the reasons I joined was to just kind of make it known that that's not the experience for everyone. Some people come in and they are not homesick at all. Some people, and like kind of whatever experience you have is valid. So that's how I spent a lot of my first month, was just a big adjustment socially. And I loved kind of getting to know the people on my floor, the people in my FSEM. There are a lot of really great opportunities through the Commons and through those programs to meet people. One thing that I really liked was being the club fair. You get to sign up for so many things. You'll get a million emails. And then from there, I joined an organization that I'm still really passionate about to this day. And I met a great group of people. And I think that that was really important, was just kind of getting involved in something from the beginning, something that took up a lot of my time. And so I was able to kind of expand my social circle through that, and also through the people on my floor. My roommate from my freshman year and 2 girls on our floor are still kind of my main friend group. That's not the case for everyone. And I think that it's something really important to remember in your first month is that it looks totally different for everyone. So no matter where you are in the process, it's kind of a valid piece of it. And then joining in something that you're really passionate about is an awesome way to meet people, get involved with the community, and just kind of be able to experience Colgate and get out of your comfort zone.
Thanks, Willa. That's really helpful advice, I think, for our incoming students. And Bella is also going to share a little bit about her first month at Colgate, coming from a different area of the country.
Yes, so as I said before, I was born and raised in Southern California. I never saw snow or seasons really. I've always lived within 30 minutes of the beach. So moving to Colgate, you're really in the middle of nowhere. It was a bit overwhelming at first, but I think in the first month, especially, the adrenaline of all of the new things, the new community, dorm, college life, classes, everything, it kind of kept me from having that sinking feeling of, oh, I'm somewhere very, very foreign. And it was when the weather started to turn that I kind of started feeling a bit weary of my choice, maybe. It's kind of like, oh, what did I get myself into? When everybody was saying, why would you leave California? I was maybe starting to think they had a point. But I'd say relevant to my transition was actually the way that the campus sparkles. Like in the winter, it's meant for kind of the climate that we live in Hamilton, New York, and that kind of snapped me right out of my yearnings for Southern California. But other than that, yeah, I'd say the biggest part was that there's so much going on all the time that I was able to kind of focus on that and establishing my new life at Colgate rather than grieving for the one I left back in Southern California.
Thanks, Bella. That's really helpful to hear. I think a lot of our students who are coming from different areas of the country and really the world will be helpful to know about each of your transitions, both Willa and Bella's experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about how you got to your academic major. And so, Paul, I'm going to start off with you first. If you can share a little bit about your journey, how you got to your academic major.
Yeah, so when I started at Colgate in my freshman year back in 2017, I guess now, I entered thinking I was going to be a physics major. I was in the first physics class. I'd already taken calculus. I had credits that I needed, and I started down the path for that major. And I met a lot of people that are still my really good friends in those classes. But one thing that I did in my first semester on campus that I think was probably really important was I wound up taking a class that I read the description of, and the class was called Evolution Dinosaurs to Darwin. It was a 100 level geology class. I took it because it sounded really cool. I'd always loved dinosaurs as a kid. I was one of those like really nerdy kids that could name all of them. And I thought it would be really cool to just take a college level course in that field. And I wound up going to the class, doing really well in it, getting really close to the professor that taught it. Her name was Professor Soja. She has since retired, unfortunately. But about halfway through the year, I got back my midterm in that class, and on the midterm, Professor Soja had written, hey, you did really, really well on this. I think you have a lot of potential in this field. I think you should maybe consider talking to me about a geology major. And that was something I'd never considered. Like I'd never even thought of geology as something one could major in college. That tends to be the case with a lot of geology majors. But after having a conversation with Professor Soja, I wound up realizing that I much more enjoyed taking geology classes than I did the physics classes. I did well enough in them, and I still use a lot of the information from the physics classes that I learned, but I couldn't be happier with my decision to change majors. And then the other thing that came with that was I wound up discovering that I had a lot more time to focus on the other, I would say, true love of my life, which is music. And I wound up being able to figure out how to pull off a dual major in the two subjects that I love most. And I'm very glad that I had the opportunity, and I'm really glad that I wound up taking that 100 level geology class my freshman year.
So sometimes it's good to explore something that you didn't even know that you were going to have, and then the benefit was you're able to do two majors that you are absolutely passionate and love. So that's really awesome. Thanks, Paul. Bella, do you want to kind of share a little bit about your experience and how you come to your academic journey?
Yes, absolutely. So I came to Colgate intending a biology major. I wanted to do maybe the pre-med track or just go into like Gen Bio, do research, whatever it was. I kind of panicked in applying to colleges and that whole experience. So I just thought, what am I good at? And wrote it down. And then my fall freshman year, I took an ethics class, philosophy class, and I just had so much fun every day. It was 3 days a week. I would be so excited to do the readings. I would be so excited to go to class and talk about the readings. And I had the most amazing professor, Professor McCabe. He is just so engaging in class, and I really enjoyed leaving and wishing that class had been longer, that we could have gotten to that one final point. And that continued. I had a really, really bad seed for the course registration in the spring. I was the last slot of the freshmen, so that means you're the last group to register out of the entire campus. So I tried to pre-register for most of my courses. I got to pre-register for a philosophy course, and I don't know, I just kind of fell down the rabbit hole. I realized that I wasn't intellectually stimulated in biology. I needed to be in a classroom setting like the ones I had in philosophy, where I was constantly able to ask questions and have discussions and kind of think a little bit more abstractly, doing less with my hands, all of that. So I came to the hard decision to course correct and declare philosophy, which was a really hard decision to come to, because I felt in a way that I was abandoning this path in STEM that I had laid out for myself. But eventually I figured out that it was okay to follow something that I'm actually passionate about, and that would serve me so much better in the long run and serve my time at Colgate so much better.
Thanks, Bella. It seems like sometimes we stumble on our journey and we least expected it, and you found kind of where your passion lies and what you're most excited about. So really thank you for sharing your story. And Katie, can you share a little bit about your story and how you came to your academic journey?
Yes, so mine was a bit different from both Paul and Bella's, because when I first matriculated, I knew that I wanted to be an English major. That was something, that was the class I had loved all throughout elementary, middle, high school. That was the one thing that really called to me. And coming to Colgate, that love stayed with me. It's something that I hold very dear to my heart. I've enjoyed all of my classes, all the experiences I've gotten, the fact that I've been able to delve deeper into a subject that I've loved for so long has been really great. And also something that I had also realized in high school was that I was really interested in language. My high school experience, I had taken Latin, which I had enjoyed, but I knew that my foundation in Latin wasn't really strong enough for me to feel comfortable pursuing that further in college. And at the same time, I didn't really want to restart. So I started a new language, which was French. So I actually took my first French class freshman year of college. And this past semester, I was able to go to France. So again, like, I had an idea I wanted to study languages, but I wasn't really sure where it was going to take me, and I was able to have an amazing experience. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes those loves do stay with you, and also that you learn an amazing amount in college. I would say way more than you ever would in high school, which is scary, but it's also really exciting. So.
That's awesome, Katie. I'm so happy that you're able to check out France, and it's only from the passion of going and doing your major in French at Colgate. So that's been really exciting. Can you talk a little bit about also your research experiences and opportunities that you've had at Colgate in your majors?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's pretty common for small liberal arts colleges to talk about the fact that it's easy for undergraduate students to do research, which is certainly true at Colgate, but I think there's often a focus on STEM fields, which is absolutely great. If that's something you're interested in, you want to do research in that, go for it. But I think something that's pretty unique at Colgate is that there are a lot of opportunities for people who maybe study sociology, English, history, languages to do undergraduate research themselves. So mine specifically, I work for Professor Jennifer Bryce, who teaches a course every fall called Living Writers. So basically what happens for that course specifically is that she picks about like 8 to 10 books, and then the authors come to campus and speak to her students, and there's a bit of a Q&A. And because this is such a big event, Professor Bryce wants it to be open to the community. So there's also a pretty large web forum. So my job is to read all of these books over the summer before the class starts in the fall, and then help construct and design the website, finding reviews, resources, things that might pertain to the books. So for example, last year we read a book by Terry Tempest Williams, and it had a lot of descriptions of wildlife in Utah. So we attached like a web page that had a lot of information about different bird species in that area, pictures, things like that. And it's been a really great experience. It's been really exciting. I got to live in Hamilton over the summer once, which was absolutely amazing. But if you're maybe not as interested in doing research with a professor, in the sense that I'm doing Professor Bryce's project, this isn't like my brainchild, there are also opportunities for you to ask a professor if they would like to sponsor your research, which is more of like you specifically coming up with a proposal that you then give to the professor, that they then decide if they want to move forward with that with you. So that's also an option if you're interested in it. And I would really highly suggest, even if you just do it for one summer, looking into exploring your options in research, because it's been really cool for me. So.
That's really amazing, Katie. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. Paul, can you talk a little bit about your research experience as well?
Yeah, so I had the privilege to do research with Professor William Peck from the geology department over last summer. So I also lived in Hamilton over the summer. And my job was a bit more as a lab tech and things like that than it was someone who's bookkeeping and setting up websites. So what we were doing was we were looking at a mineral called wolastanite, and I won't bore you with the details, but we were looking at basically its weathering process to see if it could take carbon dioxide out of the air, which it might. We're still working on that. And I worked really closely with Professor Peck, D.I. Keller, who is a senior lecturer in our geology department, and one other student who I'm very good friends with, over that summer to try to come up with some ways to do this research, methods to figure out what is actually happening with the mineral. And I was able to use a piece of equipment called an SEM, or a scanning electron microscope, of which we are very lucky to have. It is a very expensive and very specific technical piece of equipment. that you usually wouldn't be able to touch as an undergraduate at a larger college. So the research that I was doing is stuff that typically master's students would be doing. I got to work alone with this piece of equipment that can look at things that are beyond imperceptible to the human eye, and it was a fantastic experience. I highly recommend, if you're interested in research, then reach out to people either within whatever department that you're interested in once you get to Colgate, or just talk to your professors. That's usually a really great way to find research and work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie and Paul, for sharing your information about the research opportunities that you've done. We're going to shift a little bit to talk about resources at Colgate. So Bella, if you want to share your story about how you use the different resources at Colgate, that'd be great.
Yes, so I have type 1 diabetes, and I came to Colgate with a few more concerns about just the ways that I need to take care of myself than others maybe would. So I became very, very comfortable with the health center. They're amazing down there. For anybody, I mean, we all have prescriptions for various things. All of the pharmacies in the town of Hamilton deliver to the health center, and you can pick them up there. There's a cruiser that runs on a loop to the health center, so it makes it nice and easy. But beyond that, the counseling center was very, very helpful in aiding in my transition. It was very overwhelming to kind of have to navigate all of the new things that everybody else was going through, while also trying to find a new support system for my diabetes management. So they really helped me kind of work on building those strong relationships with friends that I could be trusting in. I have a lot of friends now who know how to, you know, change the infusion set on my pump or give me injections, whatever it may be. And then also, all of this is incredibly specific to me, but there's a dietitian at Colgate. So if you maybe have different dietary needs, there's a nutritionist there to help you with all of that. I have to count all my carbs, and the dining services do a really great job of posting the nutritional information in a very visible place, and the serving size, carbs, calories, everything. Yeah, I think those were the big ones for me. Oh, even Community Memorial has been really helpful. I will go there and get a larger Sharps container because they give really small ones at the health center. I have forgotten my gate card before and had a low blood sugar, and they will be so kind and just let me go in and get whatever I need. People really want to just help you and help you succeed. And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned, is that you're going to be so much better off, and everybody around you is going to feel so much better if you can just ask for help when you need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bella. And Community Memorial is our hospital that is in Hamilton, in case anyone was curious as to what Community Memorial was. So it's right alongside of our health center. So Willa, do you want to also talk about some of the resources that you've been able to use at Colgate?
Yeah. So my second semester of my first year, a friend of mine had a medical emergency, and on Tuesday night, we ended up in the emergency room of Community Memorial. And, you know, she had an exam the next day, and my friends and I were really overwhelmed. We didn't know what to do. And we kind of just said, all right, let's call campus safety. So we called campus safety. We're like, our friend is at the hospital. She's having a medical emergency. And they got us in touch with the dean's office. They who were then able to kind of email her professors, and get her all squared away, and also really help us with if we needed anything the next day, whether it was to miss our morning classes and sleep in, or if we had an exam that needed to be pushed just a day or two. The deans are such an amazing resource at Colgate, and they can help you out in so many ways. I think that people tend to be like afraid of them because they're deans, but they are honestly some of the most useful people and some of the nicest people on campus.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bella and Willa, for sharing your information about the resources we have. They just touched upon just a few of the resources that we have. We actually have a ton more. So we would definitely encourage students to check out Colgate's website and look at all the different resources that are available to you. Next, we're going to kind of shift gears to campus involvement and getting involved. So Haley, do you want to tell us about your campus involvements?
I have a pretty full calendar full of them, so I'm sure I could give some insight. So I think it was Willa who mentioned earlier the club fair. That's this huge event that happens at the beginning of every fall semester and every spring semester, but spring semester in January, so it's like inside, so it's a little less, I think, exciting for me. But the one in the fall, it's like out on the quad, so it's between like where everyone has to walk through. Every single club gets like money for candy, and they will just like throw candy at you. They're like, sign up for robotics club, sign up for this, sign up for that. It can maybe be a little overwhelming when you first get there, which is why my first year I kind of like kept my head down and I just like looked at the signs and like made no eye contact. But I'm like a very I'm a very straight and sure person. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find these 5 clubs and then I'm going to join them and then I'm going to stay in them forever, which is not how most people operate. So I had some clubs that I like signed up for, and then afterwards I was like, why did I sign up for that? Like I've never even thought about that. So it was like a good way to get exposed to new things, because some other ones I was like, I've never thought about that, but now I'm on the email list and I can go to their events, and it was a really fun way to like meet new people, even if it's not something that I've done before. But I found kind of my core set of groups. I'm involved in a lot of cultural groups on campus. So I'm part of Sisters of the Round Table. Always a mouthful to say. Sisters of the Round Table, or SORT, which is our club for women of color on campus. I'm in Black Student Union, Colgate Christian Fellowship. I just became president of Gospel Choir. There's a lot of things that I run around on campus and participate in. And I try to also make sure I support like my friends' clubs, because the thing is that it's such a small school that you know someone in every club. Like if I want to collaborate with another club, I'll just text someone and I'll figure out who it is at some point. So that's like a really good time, and I always have like something that I can go to, and I always have someone that I can like be with. Like obviously it was a little difficult like moving and living on my own for the first time, but finding those communities for me, like personally helped me adjust very I won't say easily, but it made my adjustment a little bit easier. So I like, and all of the clubs that I joined when I was a first year, I'm still in. So I really did take root, and I've got to see a lot of them grow, and then they've seen me grow, and it's been like a really nice source of consistency. And I also like to stress that even if you don't maybe have time, like I don't know why I do that. Like I don't know why I have like a club every day that I'm running to. Like not everyone does that. Some people like it. I do. So there's other ways to get involved. You don't have to like go to one thing every single week and go to every single event. Like nobody expects that of you, because that's like a time commitment, and you have yourself and your classes and sleep all to worry about, and work. And I also like to stress that sometimes work is a good way to get involved. Like if you are kind of careful with like where you work or where you apply. My first year, I was we have work study in a lot of our financial aid packages, so that's like money in your financial aid package is set aside for you to access through having a job on campus, and they help you out really well with. That's one of the resources we have, is like finding a job. And I used to cater, and I was just at all of these random events because I was catering it, and I was like meeting these alums because they're like, oh my gosh, she sent me breakfast yesterday, and I was like meeting all these other students because I was catering for their club, and then they would see me. I got a second job while I was catering because someone approached me and she was like, you seem pretty together. You want to apply for this job? And I was like, sure. So that was how I got my sophomore year job. And I also now work in the, now I work in the Office of Admissions. So you actually might have seen me if you visited Colgate earlier this year. And I've definitely mailed you. So I hope you guys liked it. And or you all liked it. And I also work in the Alana Cultural Center, and they just do a lot of like programming and events on campus for different cultural groups and different people. So that's like a really good way that I like fill my work study requirement and still get to meet a lot of people. It's not necessarily just joining clubs. It's kind of you can literally do whatever and still meet a ton of people. That's all.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so excited about involvement just hearing about your story that I want to join all the clubs that you're in. And maybe I don't need to join the clubs. I'll just follow you around, because it sounds like you're having a good time at Colgate with your involvement. So thanks for sharing that. I loved every minute of that. So Paul, I don't know if you can top it, but I think you might be able to if you want to share your involvement about music at Colgate.
So I don't think I can compete with that at all, but I'm going to try. So as I mentioned earlier, I am a music major. As such, I'm very heavily involved with our music scene on campus. I've been a member of the university chorus as well as chamber singers since my first year on campus. I wound up taking on some positions of leadership within those organizations, especially last year during a transitionary period. With the choir, I wound up taking on the role of a de facto president because we don't actually have elections. I just had to handle a lot of things. I do a lot with the professors in the music department. I communicate with them a lot. I'm a member of a cappella on our campus. Personally, I'm a member of the Colgate Resolutions, one of the 5 groups that we have on campus. There are 3 co-ed groups and 1 all male and 1 all female for a cappella. I'm also a trombone player within the symphonic band, as well as a former DJ for WRCU. I did not have time for that anymore. And a member of Broad Street Records, which is a music group on campus that meets, typically the people in Broad Street Records are people that don't fit into the music department supported groups, such as the orchestra, the university chorus, the jazz ensemble, the chamber players, and I might be missing one, but I think I have all of them. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about musical involvement if they would like to. There's a whole host of organizations that you can join on campus, and we are really just now ramping up in the realm of live performances on campus. There's now the MAT, which is supporting a lot of artists to come in, throw concerts in the Parker Commons, which is an area inside of the apartments next to, or rather across the street from the hockey stadium, which you will recognize once you get to campus and explore a little bit. And then there's a whole host of other things that are currently in the works for live music.
Awesome. I love the fact that your major of music also is involved in your passion in your community involvements and your extracurricular activities. So you've kind of really combined the two, which is really great. Another part of getting involved is also community service. And so I know Elizabeth has passions that she has around her major and how she's actually been giving back to the Hamilton community. And so Elizabeth, do you want to share a little bit about your Cove experiences, but also giving back to the Hamilton community?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I think for me, coming into college, I had been super involved in probably too many things in high school, honestly. And so I really wanted to find something I was super passionate about on campus. And I had always had this kind of drive towards community service. So at this club fair that we've, talked about, there was a fire truck that showed up, and then there's like a team of ambulance people that showed up. And so Willa, actually another member of our panel, is in the Hamilton Fire Department. And then I am involved in SOMAC, which is the Southern Madison County Volunteer Ambulance Corporation. And so I spend roughly 12 hours a week on shift at a station where we have 3 ambulances, and we work actually alongside townspeople. So that's one of my favorite aspects of this involvement, is that not only do we get to work with other students, but we get to be off campus and we get to work with townspeople that are really like well educated and so fun to work with, and like they'll love to come sit and talk with us in our big like living room about, you know, like what kind of calls we need help on, or like even just about life, like what's going on and what's, you know, like our favorite class. And I think a lot of times it's great to just like be with the Colgate community but not be on campus, just because you get a new perspective of the people around you, and you're also meeting people you would never expect to meet. Because usually shifts, at least for SOMAC specifically, are comprised of like a higher level student and then maybe someone who's lower and in training. And then freshmen, actually, when you join, if you don't have your EMT card, you can spend your first year as a student observer, where you'll still come to shifts, but you're like not medically certified yet. And so it's a great way to meet, you know, like a freshman, a senior, a junior, and you're spending so much time with them that they really become your family on campus.
That's awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Willa, would you also share a little bit about your community service and how you've given back to Hamilton?
Yeah, so like Elizabeth said, next year I'll be the student coordinator for the Hamilton Fire Department. We work a little bit differently. We have like a pager system, so we're not on shift, but it's still a really great way to give back. But I'm also involved in another COVE organization, which is the American Heart Association on campus. And that's really, really different. So that is not as much kind of interaction and direct service, but a lot of indirect service. So we do a lot of fundraising for the American Heart Association. We held a big spin-a-thon. It got cut short this year. It's 12 hours. We had to cut it short because of a massive snowstorm, but you know, that happens here in Hamilton. But I have friends involved in other organizations, so there are ways to get involved in kind of so many different things, whether it's directly in community service, kind of going out into the community, or working more on campus and focusing the efforts there. Like my friend, she's the leader of the public health group on campus, and so they do a lot of work on campus kind of with public health. And then also this year they started working with the elementary school to kind of, you know, talk about like health for little kids. And so there's so many different things to do and so many different ways to get involved, that it's the COVE, which is the Center for Outreach, Volunteerism, and Education. There's so many different ways to get involved there.
Awesome. Thanks for providing us the outline of what the COVE stands for. We have a lot of acronyms and I couldn't remember it myself, so I'm glad that you chimed in, Willa. Thank you very much. One question that came in the chat was about work study, and I know Haley, you had mentioned about work study. Can you talk a little bit more about your work study position and hopefully answer the question that was provided to us?
Yes, I'm trying to make sure that I read the question fully. So at Colgate, when you get your initial offer, you also get your financial aid offer. And in that financial aid package is broken down by Colgate grant, expected family contribution, and then your federal loan situation, which varies based on the person. And if there's any questions about that, like you can reach out to financial aid with that. But as far as like the actual work study money going, you get the job on campus. I think that my first year, I was a little eager and I went on the Colgate portal, which you have access to after you accept your offer. And there was like I just kind of searched through every single possible avenue until I found student employment. It's not that difficult to find actually, so I don't know why I was searching so hard, but I found student employment and I found a list of job postings that were available. So I actually applied over the summer and then I interviewed when I got to campus. And I like spoke to the possible employer and then we connected. But most students wait until they start school to apply for their jobs. But either way, it's very early on in the semester and you usually get an email from student employment about how to access the portal and the applications. So then from there, the money goes into your personal account. You can set up direct deposit with the school, which is what I did. Some students get physical checks. I think that sometimes they like it. That stresses me out. So I use direct deposit. The money goes directly to the student. It does not go directly to your account with the school. So a good way to actually contribute your work study money to the school year is some people are on payment plans, which is a monthly payment plan with Colgate. So as you work, you're able to make those smaller payments in increments. What I like to do is I like to kind of just save a sum and then I contribute it towards the next year, but that required me to save up from before Colgate. So it really depends on the situation, but student accounts can help you out with navigating payment plans, and financial aid can help you out with understanding work study a little more. And I also can answer any more questions. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really a good outline and description of work study. I don't know of anyone who could have said it any more perfectly than you, Haley. So thank you very much. Another question actually came in about classes. So Elizabeth, do you mind sharing some information and answering the question about classes?
Yeah, so the question was, for those that haven't seen it, is for classes, do you take some throughout the year or different ones each semester? How many classes on average can you take per semester? So the Colgate recommended amount, or requirement, is 4 courses. So we 4 more credits on a very simple system compared to what I understand of my friends at other schools. Ours is 1 class is 1 credit. If you're in a lab, it's 0.25 credits, at least for the ones I've taken, which would be chemistry and physics. So you can take classes throughout the whole year. There are courses like that. So Gen Chem, Orgo, Physics, like a lot of the STEM-y classes are more year-long classes. There's a part 1 and a part 2, but you take them each semester and you actually have to sign up both semesters. In addition to that, there are plenty of really fun, super interesting courses that you can take alongside those on a semester basis. So even though this year I took organic chemistry throughout the entire school year, I also took some classes just first semester or some classes just the second semester.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to transition to our last kind of area, which is about living in Hamilton, because I think everyone would probably want to know a little bit about what it's like to live in Hamilton. So Katie and Paul, you both mentioned about that you had lived in Hamilton over the summer. So Katie, if you want to start with letting us know what your experience has been, and then I will direct it over to Paul to share his thoughts as well.
Okay, great. So as Kristen just mentioned, when I did my summer research last summer, I rented an apartment in downtown Hamilton. As I'm sure you've all noticed, guessed, surmised, Hamilton is in the middle of nowhere and it is a small town. However, there's lots to do downtown that are things you might not know about, that you might have to search a bit for. So I'm just going to tell you what some of my favorite things are about downtown. The first thing I just want to mention too is that a lot of first year students live up the hill, so it can be kind of a long walk to get to and from the downtown area, which is why Colgate has cruisers that, for example, you can take a cruiser from the Coop, which is the dining hall, or one of the dining halls, and also Frank, the main dining hall, and that'll take you down to the bookstore, which is in the center of the downtown area, for example. I think there are also certain cruisers that'll take you to the grocery store, which is a little farther out. But as for things in the main downtown area, there is a movie theater that Colgate subsidizes to an extent. You can go to their regular showings, but Colgate also sponsors at least once a semester, but I think oftentimes more, free movies around midnight. So those are free for all students to attend. Sometimes there's free pizza. They're usually popular big releases. So I know one of the Avengers movies was free at a midnight movie. I believe one of the Harry Potter movies, the sequel ones that came out, that was also there. There's also an annual showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is really fun. So I would highly recommend checking that out. There's also another theater called the Palace Theater, and that's less of a movie theater, more of a creative theater arts. There are sometimes concerts there. I think once a month there's a free jazz concert that's catered by Chartwell's, which is the dining service at Colgate. There is a donation, but that's totally optional. That's really cool. When I was there over the summer, I went to a production of a play about Franz Kafka. It was hilarious. It was really interesting. The theater is something you should definitely check out if you're interested in that sort of thing. There are also a lot of really local restaurants. So in Hamilton, we do have a McDonald's and a Dunkin' Donuts, but they're in a Subway, I think, but there isn't a lot in the way of chain restaurants, but there are a lot of really good, really local places you can go. For instance, Royal Indian Grill is a big favorite. They often cater Colgate events. Flour and Salt is like a bagel sandwich shop, also really amazing Colgate favorite. It's run by Colgate alumni. The place is like always packed on Saturday morning. Sometimes there's a line out the door. Ryeberry and Fojo beans are also campus favorites, so you should definitely check those out. And I feel like there's one last big thing that I love about the downtown area that I'm forgetting, but I'm sure Paul will know what I was thinking of, because there's just so many great opportunities to explore the downtown and get to interact with the townspeople. So I would really recommend getting to know that area.
Awesome. Paul, do you want to share some of your highlights of living in Hamilton?
Yeah, so I also lived in Hamilton over last summer. I rented an apartment downtown just like Katie did. One of the things that we do acknowledge, especially during the summer, is that we are very much in the middle of nowhere. We are in a small town. I was born and raised in upstate New York, so I was very much used to the weather. A lot of people might not be. But during the summer especially, things that my friends and I would do are like go on drives throughout the farm land around the area, which is really pretty. And that brings me to one of the other questions that was actually asked in the chat. Someone asked, do students bring cars to campus? Where do you park? And is it more of a benefit or hassle? So yeah, students do bring cars to campus. You are allowed to have a car on campus all 4 years. You just need to register it with campus safety and get a sticker. There is a lot behind Community Memorial Hospital that most people park their cars in. If you live in one of the Broad Street houses or an apartment, then usually you can find a spot in those areas. But otherwise, if you live up the hill, you park your car behind Community Memorial. Personally, I have had my car on campus. I only had it starting last year, but I liked having it. It's useful if you are like me and just sometimes need to get out of there and go see something new or something, really pretty out in nature. If you don't have a car, it's definitely not a big deal. A great deal of the students have them, and I'm sure you will make friends with people that have cars. There are a ton of different ways to get off campus. We have the shuttle that runs from the Coop, I think, out to Destiny, which is a mall in Syracuse. We've got a bus service that can bring you to Binghamton and then down to New York City. There's a ton of different things that you can do to get off campus. While we were there over the summer, a bunch of friends of mine and I went to the boathouse on Lake Moraine, which is just a little ways out of town, and rented kayaks and just went out on Lake Moraine for a while, especially during the summer when there's not a whole lot of people there. That's a really great way to get off campus. Fojo Beans, we stand Fojo Beans. I love that place. Their coffee is fantastic. It can get a little difficult being in a small campus area. You're not used to a small town, but there's a lot of really great places to get out and see the world. And like Katie is now reminding me, is we also have a farmer's market on Saturdays in the nice weather right on the Village Green in the middle of the downtown area. And it's a really great area to get some good food, good coffee. There's a lemonade stand all the time. And it's a really great place to see people that you might normally not see.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we're going to wrap up our webinar. I'm going to ask each person to share a tradition that they love and also a small piece of advice. So I know that we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'll ask everyone to just do a quick information about their tradition and a piece of advice that they would give an incoming student. So I'm going to actually start with Elizabeth, if that's okay. So Elizabeth, if you want to go with tradition and a piece of advice.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I'd say my favorite tradition on campus is, I think as many of us do, especially the people who are on Link staff, like we love to support our friends. So my favorite traditions are really being able to go to the concerts of my friends, whether it's like the orchestra concerts or the a cappella concerts. Dance Fest is also like a huge tradition that everyone loves. And I think just being able to like be there for your friends and engage in the Colgate community together is really powerful. And my one piece of advice, as silly as it may seem, is don't do work in your bed. Find a place on campus that's your own and that you will be productive in, because when you get in this mentality that like your bed is when you can do work, that's like, it'll really disrupt your sleep schedule, especially when you're on your own and you're in your own house.
Awesome. Okay, Bella, if you could tell us your favorite tradition and a piece of advice.
So I am the leader of one of the dance groups. I'm also partial to Dance Fest like Elizabeth, but one of my all-time favorites is on Colgate Day, which is Friday the 13th. They have free chip witches on the quad. So, you know, it's a Friday, I'm strolling to class, maybe leaving class, I can get some ice cream. That's always really fun. And as far as my advice goes, it's really, really great to like make friends and invest a lot in your social life and everything like that, but also use this time in college to get to know yourself and learn how to be with yourself and enjoy that time. Like go to the coffee shop by yourself and have a little meal, or, you know, drive to Syracuse and go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, whatever you want, whatever it is. This is a really great time, your years at Colgate and beyond, to be really comfortable with who you are and get to know that person.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Willa, if you want to share your tradition as well as piece of advice.
So I think that this one is one that you're all probably familiar with, but I think that I really like how seriously people take the 13 thing. I know my friends and I always do. Like, it's just kind of a big, like, we always joke about it. Whenever we Venmo each other, we always end it in 13 cents. Like, it's just kind of really a fun way to bond, and like it's something really small and it's pretty common. So like whenever you see it, you can get really passionate and amped up about Colgate. So I really like that. And then my piece of advice is a piece of advice that was given to my class on at convocation, and it was this horrible rainy night. We had all like walked up the hill, everyone was soaking wet and piled into the chapel. I know Elizabeth remembers, but I just remember one of the women speaking, and she said, like, try something alone, you know, don't just go to clubs and sign up for things because your friends are interested. Like, really do something for yourself and make new friends and expand your social circle. And that is how I found myself following Google Maps, walking down to the fire department one day. And now I've spent the past 2 summers in Hamilton here, volunteering with them. And I absolutely love it, and I found like a new passion. So I would say just do something because you really want to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Willa. Paul?
Yeah, so as far as traditions go, mine is also in the same vein as Bella's as far as the chip witches go. Mine is mostly because of the memories associated with the tour chip witches that they hand out at the end of the tours, because it was one of the first things that my first year roommate and I bonded over, to the point that we began, once we got to campus, we began tracking the routes that tours took so that we could try to hop on the end of it and get back to the end of the tour and snag a free chip witch for ourselves. I don't think we ever succeeded. We may try again in the future. Might be a little bit difficult to pull that off now that we're known around campus for the past 3 years, but we'll see. And then as far as a piece of advice, take classes that you never would have expected to be interested in, and take classes in fields that you have never heard of or don't know anything about. and really try to like expand your horizons. You might wind up doing something like I did and discovering that you really love a subject that you didn't previously think of.
Awesome. Katie, do you want to share your thoughts?
Oh, I just muted myself on accident. I would say that my favorite tradition is that before commencement freshman year, which is basically at the end of orientation, everyone walks up the hill together to go to commencement. Yes, sorry, I'm so confused. After there's a dinner, and then before convocation, which is graduation, at the end of your 4 years, you walk back down that hill together. And I really love the cyclicality and the symbolism of that walking back down the hill you walked up once those 4 years ago. I think that's really great. I'm sorry I muddled that in the beginning, but I think that's my favorite tradition. And then as for a piece of advice, I would say just remember that your first week, your first month, and even your first year of college doesn't dictate the rest of your college experience. You can always make new friends if you find that your friend group isn't like what you need or people that you're comfortable with anymore. You can join new clubs, you can change your major, you can do all sorts of different things. So I guess I want to say that if you don't feel like it's working out for you right away, and maybe you think like, oh, I should have figured it out by now, like I've been here for a semester, why does it still feel not right? That it like you can make changes. There's lots of opportunities for you to do things on campus even after your freshman year. You're not just like permanently stuck as like in one state of personhood on campus. So I would just say like, know that your college experience is what you make of it, and there's no one point where like you define yourself for the rest of your college experience. There's always room for growth and trying new things.
Awesome. Okay, and Haley, do you want to bring us home?
I won't be as eloquent as Katie, but I could try. I think that my favorite tradition is one of my clubs, Colgate Christian Fellowship. Every Friday, we're on the quad, and if it's warm, we give out lemonade to everyone who walks by, and we like only go between classes, so it's like scheduled really well. And then when it's freezing, we'll give out hot chocolate. They're the only people who can get me up at 8 a.m. on a Friday because that is when we start. But I love it, and I've done it since I was a first year. And my advice would be that Colgate just like has a lot for you. Like you're here for academics, but academics is like just one portion of it. So if there's anything that you want, like you should ask your dean, you should ask your CL, that's like your RA kind of at Colgate, like your link, which is like the person who introduces you to Colgate. Like there are so many resources here for you. There's free counseling, there's like the dietitian, there's like just a ton of stuff. And if you don't like think that you can do that thing for yourself, like Colgate can, and 100% will try its hardest to get that done for you. So
awesome. Well, I'm going to actually do a quick recap of some things that I found really fun and interesting. So what I loved was Bella talked about how the campus sparkles, which I've actually never had anyone share that before. So I think that that's really fun and unique to think about how Colgate's campus sparkles. Probably mostly in the winter from all the snow, but I'm sure there's probably a bit of a sparkle in the summertime as well. What I learned from Haley is if you want candy, just go to the involvement fair, because clearly it looks like a lot of people hand out a lot of candy at the involvement fair. So just if you want some candy, make sure you hit up the involvement fair. Hamilton is a small place, but it has probably some of the best restaurants and some of the best food. So I think probably both Paul and Katie talked about that it has some of the best food. Even though we have small restaurants, it's some of the best ones you're going to find. From what I learned from Elizabeth was don't ever do your homework in your bed. So I think that that is important to know. I will never do my homework now in my bed, that's for certain. And last, which I think is probably the best one as it relates to Colgate, is the chip witches. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks all.